All right, chapter number 16, Ergogenic Aids and Sport. This one is a good one. I love this chapter. It's kind of the extra chapter that I tend to go over, but we're going to go over some good stuff here, maybe some additional information that I don't necessarily cover throughout the semester when I talk about maybe certain supplements and everything. So I'm going to get right into it here in a second. Afterward, what I want to do is kind of give a little bit of a wrap up, but also kind of give, I guess, some of my opinion. This is kind of a part where this isn't going to be some of this towards the end. I'll tell you when it's not going to be on the exam, because some of it's going to be my opinion, my feelings about it. And you may have a different opinion, different feeling, and that's perfectly fine. And you can have that, and we can discuss it at certain times. That's totally okay. But I think it's one where you get into some of the ethical and moral decisions about this. So without any further ado, chapter number 16. Chapter number 16, Ergogenic Aids and Sport. And we're going to see exactly what some of these ergogenic aids, supplements, all kind of different things, and how they're going to interact with the body, at least some of the more common ones. So let's get into this. Okay, one thing that we need to go over first is, and this is kind of an introduction to this area, is there's always this question of a level playing field when we're talking about supplements, ergogenic aids, and we'll get into the definition here of ergogenic aids in a second. But the level playing field idea, what exactly does that mean? Because everybody wants to try to gain an advantage over their competitor. It doesn't matter what it is when you look at it. Off here on the side, we have a list of a lot of different things that actually improve someone's performance sometimes, or at least somebody is trying to use these to try to improve their performance over their competitor, using better equipment, better shoes, better spikes, better training, more personnel for the training, better coaching, better facilities, better nutrition, better nutritional advice, might even hire a sports nutritionist or a dietitian, LASIK surgery. Tiger Woods actually had LASIK surgery a couple different times throughout his career, and a lot of athletes will use that to improve their vision, obviously. So that's kind of an advantage. If somebody can't afford it, but somebody else can afford it, that can be looked at as an advantage, as an unfair advantage. So is that really a level playing field? Just better natural talent. Some people are just born, and genetically, they are just born a better athlete. They're more coordinated. Better nutrients kind of goes back to more of the dietitians, certain types of drugs that may help them recover from injuries, better warm-up exercises, hypnosis, stress management, going to certain specialists and psychologists and shrinks. And then you start getting into some other things like blood doping, oxygen breathing. Some of these things can be legal or illegal depending upon the country, the state, the governing body of that particular sport. But then you have some things that are legal, and most of these things are legal that I listed, such as music. Just simply music can get somebody pumped up. It's a psychological ergogenic aid that somebody can utilize. Baseball is a perfect example of this. A lot of people, especially bigger colleges, even smaller colleges, will use this. Professionals use it. Each batter has their own music as they walk up to the plate. Is that an advantage over somebody else? Possibly. If they don't have their own song, if they don't have a particular song that pumps them up, possibly. Or the team that they're playing against, it could be an away game, and they could actually be using some not so good music as they come up to the plate. So it could be a little bit of a psychological play that they're performing there. Then you have some things like extrinsic biomechanical aids, such as different types of braces, different types of shoes, like the kicking shoes. If you're a straight on kicker, the kicking shoes that have a flat surface on the front, that's an external or an extrinsic biomechanical aid. Now the picture here shows a baseball player in a dugout, and their hands are up under this heater. Now I took this picture when I was in grad school. Kent State had these heaters in their dugouts. I didn't know exactly what they were at first, but then I started asking some people, like, what are they doing over there? And somebody explained, oh, those are heaters to heat their hands up. So I started looking, and I would go back and forth between the first base and third base line and look in the dugouts, and I noticed something interesting. Kent State had these heaters in their dugouts. The away dugouts did not have them. That was an advantage on cold days. And in fact, this day, it was almost snowing. On a cold day, that is an unfair advantage. You could look at that as an unfair advantage. But really, when you look at it, it is unfair. The other team didn't have anything like that. Now, they could have brought something with them to heat them up. They could have had space heaters. They could have had hand warmers, whatever it might be. But you could still look at it as that's not a level playing field. And why I go into this is because we need to kind of discuss this level playing field thing and really think about it at times, because anytime you say that, you're inducing some questions, some important questions. Well, what exactly is a level playing field? Just because one person can afford or gain access to something, does that really make it an unfair advantage? So again, some questions to kind of talk about before we get into this. So not everything that anybody does in athletics that they try to use as an improvement for performance is unfair or illegal. Okay, so some terminology I want to look at here. Ergogenic just simply means work producing. So it is something that helps to produce work. So if you break that word down, ick would be the characteristic of, gen would be the beginning, then ergo meaning work. So the beginning of the generation of work. Ergolytic, on the other hand, is work decreasing. A lot of things people think that are ergogenic are actually ergolytic aids, and we'll actually go into a couple different of them because some people might use those as ergogenic, but they're actually not helping them at all. A placebo is just simply an inactive substance or some type of fakery, if you will, and it's made to look like the real thing. So it cannot help the individual at all. It's fake. It's just not going to affect the body at all. Then the placebo effect then would be there's a physiological response based upon the expectations. So if somebody reacts to that placebo, well, we know that the placebo wasn't going to change anything, but if something did change physiologically, that means there was more psychology involved with it. They were expecting the results, so therefore they got results. On the right here, there's actually a figure showing training. There's a final 7 weeks, and then the next 4 weeks, you have some type of training that is going on, weight training, and that's squat, sitting press, military press, and bench press. And then the next 4 weeks, they got a placebo of something, a supplement. And they were probably told it was steroids or whatever it was. There was an increase in all of the parameters in terms of the strength, the maximal strength for those, but there shouldn't have been. It was just a placebo. That's the placebo effect. They thought they were getting something and they were expecting to see results, so therefore they got results. Let's start off with some pharmacological agents and sympathomimetic agents. So these are things like amphetamines that stimulate the central nervous system. The two big ones here are going to be ephedra and pseudoephedra. Ephedra being the biggest one. Ephedra, if you've heard of it, it works. If you research any of it, look up some of it, it absolutely works. It's been banned for quite a while now. Back when I was in high school, a little bit when I was in undergraduate school, these supplements were everywhere. They were used as weight loss supplements for the most part, and they worked. They absolutely worked. They boosted your energy and they stimulated the central nervous system. So there was a proposed weight loss with this because you were burning more calories. You were stimulating the body, stimulating the central nervous system. They were also proposed to improve concentration and focus, delay fatigue perception, which from what I remember was true, and a little bit of euphoria or indestructibility that somebody has. I'm not 100% sure about that. Probably depend upon the person and how much they used. And enhanced performance, absolutely. For the most part, it did enhance performance because you were more alert. And endurance, speed, and strength gains, possibly with those, depending upon the individual and how it reacted with the body. The big reason why it got banned is because some people took more than what they were supposed to, what it said on the bottle, or they had underlying conditions and they took too much of it and died. So one of the risks for using this was death. Cardiovascular strain was going to happen, and it also masks some physiological danger signals. There were some individuals who had heart conditions that they did not know about, some other conditions as well. And while they were on this, they were not drinking enough fluids, they were not eating enough food, so they were trying to lose weight, but at the same time, they were exercising a lot. So they were putting a lot of strain on their heart, and some young people actually had heart attacks from it, just died suddenly because of it. And there was some addiction going along with it as well. But Ephedra certainly works. You can still find it in very small amounts in some supplements, but they've kind of gone the way of ludes. Good luck trying to find a pure Ephedra pill or something that has a good amount of Ephedra in it. Just usually not going to happen. Caffeine. Caffeine is the most widely used drug in the entire world. It is considered a drug, and it is one of the greatest drugs ever discovered on this planet. It's fantastic, right? Coffee, it's in chocolate, it's in pop soda, it's all kind of different drinks as well. It's in gum form, it's in pill form. You can get it a bunch of different ways now. It's similar to amphetamines, but it's not nearly as strong. So it does increase alertness and concentration, and it helps to delay some fatigue. Reaction times are greatly decreased for the most part. Again, sometimes this depends upon, is somebody tired or have they been awake for a little while? There is a little bit of free fatty acid mobilization with this, where there's some glycogen sparing, where they could be burning a little bit more fats. Some of that may be a little bit iffy. However, because somebody is more alert and they're able to concentrate a little bit more, and it could stimulate the central nervous system, or it does stimulate the nervous system, it could lower rating of perceived exertion at least a little bit. It might not be very significant, but at least a little bit. And there is a mechanism where it does show that it could possibly increase calcium release from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, and also help with the sodium-potassium pump activation, thus helping with faster and stronger muscular contraction. Does it occur? Probably, maybe a little bit, but it's probably not that significant. Some risks of using it: there's some nervousness that goes along with it, and restlessness with some new users, or if you're getting a massive amount of it when you are usually used to maybe like 100 milligrams. 100 milligrams is usually what a cup is, and a cup of coffee is 6 ounces. A cup of coffee is smaller than what most people think. A cup of coffee is not 12 ounces or 18-ounce mug. That 18-ounce mug that you see me drinking in class a lot of times, that's 3 cups of coffee. So, and I put a lot of coffee in there, coffee grain. So it's probably, I've never measured it and never had it tested, but I'm going to guess I probably have, I'd say at least 500 or 600 milligrams of caffeine in that thing. To give you an idea, a large venti from Starbucks usually contains about 500 to 700 milligrams of caffeine. And this varies quite a bit, how much caffeine is in certain drinks and coffee, depending upon how it was manufactured, how it was brewed in the store or the restaurant. They've tested some coffees even at McDonald's, and they can be anywhere from 100 milligrams up to 500 milligrams. And on the same cup of coffee, on the same amount of ounces. So it varies widely. It can potentially cause dehydration. It's not a massive diuretic, but it is a slight diuretic. It can possibly cause fatigue. There is a crash a lot of times after you've drank it, after a couple hours. Some recreational drugs that a lot of times are used as ergogenic aids: alcohol, cocaine, marijuana, and nicotine. So users of these will look at them as, oh, these are going to help me play better. They're going to improve my performance. But in the end, they are actually ergolytic aids. They actually decrease the work that somebody can produce. Alcohol should be fairly obvious. Marijuana to a certain extent. Cocaine, even though somebody might be a little bit wired on cocaine, really not very helpful in terms of performance. And nicotine. I see a lot of athletes either smoking or dipping, and it just kind of helps them. At least they say it helps them, but it actually increases blood pressure, increases heart rate. So that is an ergogenic or an ergolytic aid, excuse me. All of these, however, can be used for maybe decreasing the perception of pain, maybe nervousness, especially people who are in a sport that they're going to be possibly injured or at least go through some pain during that sport. Football is kind of one of them, where they could maybe take some marijuana to help with some of the pain, alcohol as well. All right, let's get into the good stuff, right? The good stuff. If you're listening on your headphones, there is a picture here that some people may be a little shocked at, but don't worry, it's actually fake. It's actually fake. It is a fake penis.
We are adults. Now, I want everybody together to go ahead and say, penis, penis, penis. Come on, y'all, say it.
Penis, penis, penis.
Well, good, great.
So why is this even here? Well, let's talk about anabolic steroids. So anabolic steroids, it's supposed to enhance tissue growth. It is based upon the body's natural testosterone or possibly human growth hormone, and it's supposed to build tissues, specifically the muscle tissue. So it's based upon the androgenic hormones or the male sex hormones, testosterone. So there is going to be an increase in body mass, increase in fat-free mass, so muscle mass, and a decrease in fat mass. Steroids can help to reduce fat mass along with building muscle mass. So there's obviously some strength gains. There's also shorter recovery times because there's an increase in protein synthesis that occurs. You have those microscopic damages in the muscles, and the steroids help to bring on more protein synthesis to help those tissues and those muscle tissues repair. There can also be an increase in red blood cell production and also blood volume overall, which helps not only anaerobically, but aerobically. And again, depending upon how somebody is training. Now, usually governing bodies try to do some random testing with this. However, there are ways to beat the system. And the picture on the right is actually an example of what's known as the Wizinator. I believe this company still exists. You can probably find this somewhere. But what this is it looks like a jockstrap or some underwear where there is a fake penis. And in the waistband, there is actually some clean urine. So somebody, even though somebody might be standing behind them or watching them go into a stall, they'll pee in this cup and watch the urine actually go into the cup. Unbeknownst to the person that is trying to observe, this is clean urine. It's not that actual person's urine. This is one of the reasons why when most testing occurs now, the individual has to drop everything. They have to get naked and pee in the cup, and somebody actually has to stand there and watch them because of things like this. There's a movie known as The Program. If you want to look it up, there was a guy named Latimer in there, and he was on steroids. He had a couple different ways of getting around the testing. The little holder that holds the toilet paper in the stall. There was a vial of clean urine in there. There was a thing known as an oil change, basically taking out his urine and putting in good urine into his bladder. There's a lot of different ways of cheating the system, but the governing bodies are trying to get ahead of that. And I bring this stuff up just for informational purposes. I'm not saying you need to go cheat the system if you want to start taking steroids. It's not what I'm talking about. Just giving you the information of why we have the systems in place that we do now is because of things like this. Now, there is a dose-related response with anabolic steroids. Generally speaking, the more you take, the more response there is. That's where a lot of people get into trouble, is that a little bit is probably beneficial. How beneficial it is, we're not exactly sure, because the research on anabolic steroids is very minimal. It's just simply because it's illegal, which is unfortunate, because I think there could be a lot of good research on anabolic steroids if we could open that back up at least a little bit for it. So hopefully at some point anabolic steroids gets to the point where marijuana is right now, where we can open up a lot more research. It becomes a little more legal to get. The governing bodies of Major League Baseball, the Olympics, NFL, they can still ban it and still test for it, but the general population can maybe take it and it could be beneficial. We could find out that at least some doses could be beneficial. All right, I'm showing a graph right now of no exercise versus exercise. And in those two conditions, there were people that took placebo versus testosterone, and the no exercise and exercise. Couple things with this is that in all of these exercises, and this was increase in strength change, that testosterone, anabolic steroids absolutely worked. Even with no exercise, the anabolic steroids improved the strength. So yes, to maximize the results, somebody needs to exercise while they're taking anabolic steroids. However, taking some testosterone and anabolic steroids without exercise is still going to improve strength. So that's one point of this. The other thing to point out is that the individuals who were not exercising and got the testosterone, got the steroids, actually improved almost as well or a little bit more in all the exercises in the strength gains than the people who were just exercising and got the placebo. Therefore, the testosterone has a massive effect on the strength gains. Now, exercise is certainly going to be the hard way of getting to that point, and combining exercise with the anabolic steroids is certainly going to be above and beyond anything else. But exercise will improve strength, obviously, but the testosterone also improves the strength without the exercising. Now, sticking with some of the testosterone and the anabolic steroids, there are companies that have come out with natural derivatives of testosterone, such as dehydroepiandrostenedione, also known as Andro. But these are not as anabolic, if at all. They're just a precursor to testosterone, but there's hardly anything there that is going to maybe turn into a real testosterone. So only a small portion of it is going to be converted. So you'll see some supplements that say they're derivatives of testosterone. Andro is kind of the big one. I think Andro actually got banned back in 98 when Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa was on the home run race. They found some Andro in McGwire's locker. So a bunch of people went out and bought it because they thought, oh, if I take this, I'm going to be big and strong like Mark McGwire, which there you go. Some people still don't understand the fact that you need to work for a lot of things too. A little rant there, sorry. Getting squirrely again. But they banned it because too many people bought it, and then there could be some side effects. And in fact, some of the side effects seen with testosterone that we'll get here to in a minute are also seen in some of these natural derivatives. Now, how do they actually test for these hormones? Well, there are two different types of testosterone. There's the active and the inactive. There's testosterone, which is the active, and epitestosterone, which is the inactive. Epitestosterone is not affected by any ingestion or injection of testosterone. Generally speaking, there's a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every molecule of testosterone, there's a molecule of epitestosterone in the body. Could be maybe as high as 2-to-1, depending upon the individual. But if it is greater than 4-to-1, that has never been seen naturally in the body. So therefore, that person has been doping. Okay, so let's get into the risks of using. There is a whole list of them, so bear with me here. Stunted growth. These could actually fuse the epiphyseal growth plates and stop growth, especially in young individuals. Could be low sperm counts, testicular atrophy. The Leydig cells in the testes is what creates the testosterone, and if you're getting it from the outside, Well, the body says, well, I don't need to create this stuff now. I'm getting it from the outside. So those cells actually start to deteriorate and the testes start to shrink. So that's where you get the testy shrinkage that some people will talk about. Also have maybe prostate enlargement. There's also an increase in LDL, decrease in HDL at times. So therefore an increase in the bad cholesterol, a decrease in the good cholesterol. Hypertension is also associated with this because there's greater water retention and also sodium retention. So that increases plasma volume, increases overall blood volume, and thus increases the exertion on the walls of the artery, thus high blood pressure. There could be risks of heart disease. There's some hypertrophy that occurs in the heart, and some of this hypertrophy is not the pliable hypertrophy that we normally see in somebody who's aerobically trained. There could also be some arrhythmias that are developed. There's some dihydrotestosterone fluctuations, and that's going to cause acne. So somebody who is a grown man who's already gone through puberty, it's almost like they're going through puberty again, where they're getting some acne, especially on the back. Could be maybe some liver diseases and tumors that develop. So the liver is the organ that metabolizes the steroids. However, if they are injecting it, they're likely to bypass the liver a lot of times. At least most of it's going to bypass the liver. If it's an oral ingestion of the steroids, then it's going to go through the liver, and that's going to cause more of the problems there. Now, there could also be some mood swings and aggression. If you've ever heard of roid rage, this is what we're talking about. The problem is there's these hormonal fluctuations. Men will produce testosterone as well as estrogen. But now that they're taking the testosterone from outside the body, that's causing some major variations of the ratio of testosterone to estrogen. So they may start to have these periods where they're crying, they're real kind of soft, teddy bear type, and then all of a sudden they get this huge boost of testosterone and they get mean. Does it happen? Probably, but I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and people who have actually been on steroids before and have been around people who have been on steroids. And they say that what they have seen is that people who are angry and jerks off of steroids, well, they are angry jerks on steroids. So the personality could actually be part of this as well. Now, that was mostly on the male side. On the female side, male pattern baldness, hairiness. So start to grow facial hair. There's a deepened voice. There's a decrease in breast size. There's a lot of menstrual irregularities, or they could just completely cease to have a menstrual cycle at all. There's clitoral enlargement. And also in men too, there's a gynecomastia, meaning that they are growing breast tissue. My first semester here at Wilmington, I was kind of shocked, but somebody yelled out, "Bitch tits." And that's exactly what they are. Basically, these are men who are growing breast tissue, and that's one of the side effects of this. And there is a sexual dysfunction, both male and female. It could be a heightened or a lack of interest in sex. So it just kind of depends upon the individual and how they are responding to the increase in testosterone. Switching gears to some nutritional agents. Some of these are going to be natural in the body and are going to be relatively safe for somebody to take. Creatine. So creatine, based upon the ATP PCR, the phosphocreatine, that is possibly an increase in power and speed recovery. Overall, the conclusions are there is an increased power output. There's a max strength and rate of force production that's maybe not necessarily affected, but there is increased maybe power output, at least in that particular moment. There are some strength gains because of the strength training that somebody's going through, and they're able to gain a little bit more reps and increase their strength during that particular and power output during that particular day that they're working out, whatever it is, bench press, squat, deadlift, whatever it is. So there is a tendency to have an increase in fat-free mass and the gain in muscle mass. However, some of this could be a placebo effect, some of it. Taking the creatine is actually going to cause a little bit more water retention, especially in the muscles. So the muscles are going to go through some hypertrophy, but there's water in them now. That's going to cause them to look bigger. If someone is looking in the mirror and they look bigger in the mirror, or if people are telling them, hey, man, you're working out, you look good, man, you look like you're getting huge, you're getting jacked. Well, they're going to feel good about themselves. That's going to boost their confidence a little bit. And then they're going to go back into the gym and work a little bit harder to build their muscle up, even more than what they think it is. So some of this could actually be a placebo effect. And we do know that creatine has some variation as well. If you look at the studies, one study will say, yes, it works. One study will say, no, it doesn't. And then there's a whole bunch right in the middle. Yeah, there's some evidence to show it does work under certain conditions. Probably what's going on here is that it's like any other supplement, or it's like any other vitamin or mineral. If someone is deficient in it, they're probably going to benefit from it. And where do you get creatine naturally? You get it from eating meat. So if anyone is a vegetarian, they could actually have low creatine levels, possibly. So taking some creatine for them might be beneficial. Somebody who gets a lot of meat, it might not be as beneficial to them. And a couple last ones here with fat loss. First one I'll talk about is Hoodia, and that is used as an appetite suppressant. There's a lot of different supplements that use appetite suppressants, and Hoodia is a common one. It's actually a plant. It looks like a cactus, but it's actually unrelated. It looks like it has little barbs on it, but they harvest it and put it in the supplement, and it's an appetite suppressant. It can be sold as a separate supplement on itself or sold as a brand. In fact, there was a commercial way back when with Anna Nicole Smith. She promoted this quite a bit. It was known as TrimSpa, baby.
Anna, how did you do it?
TrimSpa, baby. Anna, the ultimate comeback. Make yours. 1-800-TrimSpa or trimspa.com.
And she did lose a lot of weight. Whether it was all TrimSpa or not, we have absolutely no idea. Probably not. But that was the main ingredient, was Hoodia in the TrimSpa. On February 7th, 2007 was the first time that a supplement was given the label of an okay by the FDA. The very first time it was approved. This supplement was known as Orlistat, or commonly known as Ally. It was originally approved in 1999 as a prescription drug for treating obesity. How it worked was it was a fat blocker. So there was some absorption that was decreased with fat. And actually, it decreased most of the fat that somebody would ingest. So you're like, oh, wow, this is going to be great. If I don't ingest the fat, then I can eat the fat. I can eat the fatty foods. And I'm completely decreasing the amount of calories I'm getting from the fat. There's a couple problems with this, though. And here's the major issue with this supplement. There are fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, that are absolutely necessary to the body. And if you're not absorbing the fat, you're likely not going to absorb those nutrients either. So there need to be vitamin supplementation of those vitamins, A, D, E, and K. And then along with the vitamin supplementation of those, there's probably other ones in there that they're getting, which is good. But you need a vitamin supplement along with this. The other problem, and this is probably the biggest problem, is that if somebody was eating fat, let's say they were taking this drug and they were eating a cheeseburger, bacon double cheeseburger, and they're like, I don't even need to worry about the fat in this. I'm not going to absorb it. Well, the problem is in about an hour or two, they're going to be sitting on a toilet and they're probably going to have to change their shorts because this could cause very bad diarrhea and gas. If they're not absorbing the fat, that fat has to go somewhere. It's just not going to disappear into some other dimension. It's going to go right out. So I believe one of the side effects was actually labeled anal leakage, which is kind of disgusting, but I mean, it was pretty bad diarrhea if somebody ate a very high fat food and was taking this. So that's one of the problems. So if somebody's on this, they have to have a low fat diet to begin with. Well, if they're on a low fat diet, then why are they even taking this supplement? Shouldn't that work anyway. So there's a conundrum with it. So anyway, the first time we get something approved by the FDA, a governing body, yeah, it's effective, and the efficacy of it's maybe good, but it's really not necessary. Somebody could probably just diet and exercise and be fine. In fact, most of the supplements that you see in GNC or Walmart or wherever it is on the bottle, it'll say best results with diet and exercise. All right, let's wrap this up with the regulation of supplements. And I talked about the Ally being the first one that was approved. It was actually a Dietary Supplement Health Education Act of 1994. That's the DSHEA Act. And that one is used to basically regulate this stuff. Kind of. It's not really regulating it. So a dietary supplement is a product. And this is what the Act says. A dietary supplement is a product that's taken by mouth, and it contains a dietary ingredient that's intended to supplement the diet. So these could be vitamins, minerals, herbs, amino acids. It also goes on to state dietary substances for the use by man to supplement the diet by increasing total dietary intake. So this is a concentrate, some metabolite, some constituent, extract, or combination of different substances. Could be plants, could be man-made, whatever it could be. So it must be in a pill, a capsule, a soft gel, a powder, a liquid, or a bar, like a candy bar, like a protein bar, something like that. And here's where the fine details are. This is the fine print. All of this is considered food. It is not considered drugs at all. And it must be labeled as a dietary supplement. So it's supplementing the diet. It is not trying to cure somebody of obesity. It is not trying to cure somebody of another disease or as whatever it is. It has to be considered food. Therefore, it must be labeled a dietary supplement. So it's supplementing the food that you are intaking. That's why it's not as regulated as what a lot of people want it to be. I'll go into a little bit of a personal opinion about this here in a little bit in the wrap up. And whether you share my personal opinion is perfectly fine. If you don't, that's awesome. We can discuss. So that was chapter number 16, and I will see you here in a second. All right, that was a fun one. Oh man, I love this chapter so much. First off, I want to talk about the picture I think it was the second slide. It was the introduction with the baseball player with their hands on the heater or underneath the heater. I always bring that one up because that, if you look at it, it's an unfair advantage. They purposefully put the heaters in that dugout, but not the other one. Maybe it was because of a structural reason. Maybe there wasn't really much electricity in the other dugout. I have absolutely no idea. I think since then they have added that, whether that was a league rule or whether they just put them in there to be nice. I have no idea. But there's a lot of different things that people that have access to that some people will look at as an unfair advantage. Is it really an unfair advantage? I don't know. That's the moral and ethical decisions that we kind of have to make going forward. Now, if it's against the rules and somebody breaks those rules, then yeah, it's against the rules. It's illegal. So, and I'm not talking about from legal, societal, illegal aspect. I'm talking about from a governing body aspect. And that societal thing I'll talk about here in a little bit. So went into some terminology and then went into the pharmacological aids, the amphetamines. The Ephedra is kind of the big one there. Again, there was a supplement known as Exenedrin. I think it's still around, but it does not have any Ephedra in it anymore. But man, oh man, it had, and I think there was another one too. It was Muscle Tech. I can't remember exactly what the supplement was, but all of these supplements back in the late 90s, early 2000s, they had Ephedra in them, and they were great. If you took them correctly, you shouldn't have had any problem. The problem was that people like, hey, a little bit helps, but I bet a lot helps even more. So I'll take half the bottle in a day or whatever it was. And they had underlying conditions, and they weren't drinking any fluids. They were becoming dehydrated, and they weren't eating a lot. So there's your problem. That's kind of why a lot of that stuff got banned, is because people didn't take it correctly and people had underlying conditions. So going to see if you know you may potentially have an underlying condition or you want to make sure, going to get a full checkup. That's, a physical. That's what you kind of need to do. And actually checking, make sure your heart is healthy, liver, all that good stuff. So under supervision of a doctor is probably going to be the best bet for that. Caffeine is the most widely used drug on the entire planet. And I bet if we find intelligent life on other planets, they're going to also have caffeine. I don't know if caffeine could exist on other planets or not. Probably somewhere in the universe with the trillions of stars that we have. Somewhere, some planet probably also has caffeine. Could also be in a parallel universe too, right? Anyway, caffeine found in a lot of different substances. Again, it stimulates the central nervous system. Does it improve performance? Possibly. If somebody is sleepy, if they're tired, it can give them a little bit of a boost. There's a little bit of a scenario where there could be some improved muscular contraction with that increased release of calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, but maybe not. We're not really sure how much that affects it. Most of the studies are very inconclusive about that. The one study I did, I didn't really see much. Maybe a little bit with females, but I didn't have them come in the same time during the day. It was like whenever they could come in. So that was kind of the problem there with that study. It was a limitation. Most of the studies, though, if they're done in the morning, they'll show some improvement. But was it because of that mechanism or they just were more alert? More than likely, they were just more alert. So the recreational drugs... These ones are good. People will take a lot of different stuff. I actually had a student tell me he took cocaine for a little while to help see if it helped him with lifting. Said it didn't really help, and that's not surprising. Actually, a lot of these actually suppresses the central nervous system, and it does not help the individual at all. Really, a little bit with pain tolerance and getting through some pain and discomfort. But other than that, in terms of performance and strength gains, these are going to be work decreasing. In fact, alcohol can suppress growth hormone. So people who are weight training throughout the week and then they're also drinking at night and partying on the weekends, they're not going to gain nearly as much muscle mass as somebody who just does not do any of that. So there you go with that. And then we got into the Wizinator. That one's always like whoa, what is that? What are you doing? What are you showing? So the Wizinator, it was a real thing. And I believe it is still up there. I haven't looked it up because I don't really care to look it up, because I don't need to buy one. I don't think you can get them on Amazon. I'm pretty sure you can't. But they did have a website, and people use these to get by piss tests. And they put clean urine in there, get somebody to get clean urine. And so that's why, in fact, a lot of the athletes now tell me that they do have to drop everything, and somebody has to stand there and watch them. So if you have stage fright, that sucks. So somebody actually has to watch them go in a cup now because of substances or products like that. Maybe some other ones, the derivatives of testosterone. There was a bunch of different supplements that had Andro in it, and there's a lot of epitestosterone supplements. None of them really worked to the extent that they at least claimed to have worked. So those are usually a no-go. Most of them, you're probably just going to pee out whatever is in them. Risks of using anabolic steroids. Man, what was there? 3-4 slides of them? There's a lot. There's a lot of risks. And some of those risks are going to be dependent upon a lot of things. The individual, how much they're taking, are they cycling on or off of it? What is the actual supplement? I mean, those are some things that are going to play a role in it. But those side effects can affect men, women, younger individuals. So, that's, if you've ever seen a female bodybuilder, the ones that got really big and looked at after they retired, some of them, there's a few of them, you can find pictures of them online. Some of them have facial hair, like full beards. And I think they just kind of went with it too. They tend to, just, shave it, and, some of them even just have a goatee. So not to laugh at them, but I'm laughing at the situation around it. So it's just kind of strange. But that was what they were willing to do for their sport and to make money and get famous and whatever it is. So creatine being another popular one. Creatine in general works, and it's relatively safe. There's almost no side effects that we know of now of creatine. We know the long-term studies of creatine now, and we don't find anything that is very bad. There's nothing linked to cancer. There's nothing linked to digestive problems. The only thing that ever happened was there was some heartburn, gastrointestinal reflux disease, but the issue there was what was in the supplements that creatine was in. There was a lot of sugar. There was a lot of other substances that were giving people heartburn. That's really the biggest thing. So, and they're giving massive amounts of creatine to people that are, that have cancer, to AIDS patients, people have heart conditions, and they have never seen any major side effects that are causing any additional problems. So then it can be just beneficial. The next one there was the Hoodia TrimSpa, baby. Maybe I'll put a video of that up, to show what the Cole Smith video commercial, whatever it is. And then going into the Ally, the supplement that was actually approved. That's kind of interesting and kind of funny at the same time. Again, if somebody's taking it, they cannot be on a high fat diet or getting at least a lot of fat. They still have to be on a low fat diet or no fat at all. But they need to take the supplements to ADE and K. So they need something there. They need a little bit of fat to be able to absorb some of those nutrients. But with that, they're going to have diarrhea and gas. And depending on how much fat they have, that diarrhea and gas can be very, very significant. So that's a problem there. All right, now getting into the regulation portion of it. So none of this is regulated as drugs. It's food. That's what it's regulated as. It's a supplement to food that you eat. That's basically what the Act said, the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994. So there's a lot of people that have tried to get that reversed and try to change it. There's a lot of parents that have complained about it. And I feel for them. Some of these parents have lost children because they've taken, back when Ephedra was in some of these pills, they took it and they died from it, but they also had some other things going on with them. And they took massive amounts of it. They didn't take it correctly. I'm not blaming the individual. I'm not blaming the parent or the individual. I'm just saying that if you don't take something correctly, then bad things can happen. This is kind of the part going forward that is not on the exam. This is kind of my opinion, my view on things. I don't want to get political. I really don't, but I got to say it to kind of get into this. I'm more of a libertarian type of person. I think that if you want to take a drug, if you want to take something that makes you feel good, go right ahead. That's perfectly fine. You can do with your body what you want, and I'll do with my body what I want. I look at a lot of these supplements and a lot of things as junk. But I'm not going to look down upon somebody that wants to try something, anabolic steroids, or try marijuana or cocaine or heroin, whatever it is. I don't really care. I'm not saying that I would take it. And I'm also not saying that Major League Baseball doesn't have the right to ban it. NFL, the same thing. The IOC, was it USADA, the cycling committee? All of those governing bodies, they're private industries, private companies, they can do whatever they want. Hell, they can ban caffeine. They can ban whatever they feel like is going to gain too much of an advantage. Because if you look at it, cortisone is banned in cycling, but not the NFL. So, I mean, there's two things right there. You're like, well, why is it different in one sport versus the other? So they can do with whatever they want. What I'm saying is, I don't know why they banned Ephedra, because there was some certain circumstances where people were taking them incorrectly. They knew they had ephedra. The problem is we have a decrease in education with a lot of this stuff. That's the problem. And I think there were some instances, I think, where the companies they had put on the bottle what to take, how much to take, don't take, a certain amount during a certain period of time. Usually that's how prescriptions are too, but people did it anyway. Maybe there was a little bit more education that people could have went through, and that could have helped. But I don't see the need. I don't even see the need for this act. I always call it the Deshay Act because it's easier to say. I don't see the need for this. I don't see the need for any of the other stuff that goes on with regulation for the FDA and the USDA and all that kind of stuff. You just got to be smart about this. It's simple. You just got to be smart about it. I list all of the side effects, the possible side effects of steroids. Not to just be like, hey, these are the side effects. Hey, look, a guy's going to grow boobs, or a girl's going to lose her hair and grow goatee. That's not why I do that. It is kind of funny at times, but I do it because to get the education out there. And then it's up to you. Well, do I want to possibly go through that? Again, that's up to you. And to know that if you're playing a sport and you get caught, well, then you're done. So, and if you have it, and I believe with steroids, if you're caught within 1,000 feet of a school with steroids, or especially on their property, like it's a $2,000 fine plus jail time. And if you get caught with steroids, I don't know what exactly the fine is and jail time and all that stuff. But I mean, it's just like a lot of the other drugs. That's why I want some of the steroids to become legal again so that we can actually study this stuff. I wish we could study ephedra again. It would be very, very beneficial, I think, to see if there are some potential positives that can come out of it. Same thing with steroids. I would love to have a line of research looking at steroids, but we can't because some people just don't like the idea. That's kind of the problem there. And again, if you have a different opinion, that's perfectly fine. That's my personal opinion. That's not on the exams. You don't have to study that. But that's, I go on some of these rants because I feel like this is the part of the class. One of the very few times in our class schedule, this and maybe ethics, and we go into some steroids stuff and supplement stuff in the ethics seminar. But I think this is one of those times, at least in this class, the exercise physiology class, where we can actually discuss some of these things. Unfortunately, we're not in class at the time. Sometimes I don't get discussion going, or discussion doesn't really happen too much because I think sometimes people are afraid to kind of say something. But if you have any questions, any comments about this, put a comment down below. Let's try to get something going. Good or bad, I don't know. Although YouTube might take it down because you're being mean to people. Sorry, YouTube is acting funny lately. All the social media companies now, if you don't say something really nice, they might ban your comment, right? That's kind of a rant there too. But anyway, that was chapter number 16. That is the end of the semester. That is exercise physiology. I thank you for listening to me through kind of a weird semester, weird things going on. It was definitely unique, out of the ordinary, but we got through it. And yeah, I hope everyone learned something. I hope something throughout the semester, at least one thing. If not, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But if you have any questions, any comments or anything, again, leave them down below and we'll get something going. If you have questions, want to ask me personally, or comments personally, email me. Don't send me hate mail just because I have an opinion. Please don't do that. Let's try to be cordial about it. It's okay to have different opinions. That's perfectly fine. It's okay to have disagreements. Just we don't need to start arguments. So anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, comments, leave them down below, all that good stuff. So stay safe and take care.
Why, it's my penis.